So we're looking at question 242 on LeetCode, which is valid anagrams. So for those who are not aware, let's just look at what anagrams are. So anagrams are two words where you could rearrange a particular word to give the other word. For example, if our two words were ABC and BCA, you could rearrange BCA to give you ABC. So you're just rearranging the letters to give back the original string. But in this case, we have QWE and EWR. We see that these two words do not have the same letters, so they're not anagrams. But however, if you replace R with Q, in this case, both of these words would be anagrams. So the question is pretty simple. It says, given two strings S and T, write a function to determine if T is an anagram of S. So there are two main approaches that you can take to solve this problem. The first approach would be convert both of these strings to a char array, and then you would sort them so that all the letters are sorted, and then you would compare them. And if the arrays are same, you would return true, else you would return false. But in this case, the time complexity is O of n log n, because you are doing a sort on both the arrays, thereby making it O of n log n. And the time complexity is O of n because you're creating a copy of the char array in both the cases. So for string S and string T, you would be creating a char array for both of them. So another approach that is a little more interesting and has better space and time complexity is initializing an array to keep account of the characters. And for each particular character, for example, if you're iterating through string S, for every single character, you would increment the count by 1, and then in this particular, so that would be one for loop. The other for loop would be you would be going through every single letter in string T, and then you would be subtracting that particular character's instances in the same array. So once you're done with both of these cycles, you would check if every entry in that initialized array is 0. If it is, you would return true. If not, you would return false. We'll write out this particular algorithm in a couple of minutes, and you'll be able to understand it and visualize it better. But let's just discuss the time and space complexity. So the time complexity in this case would be O of n, and that's because you would be iterating through string S and string T, and you would be going through every single character in both of the strings. And then the space complexity is O of 1. Because we are initializing an integer array of size 26, and that will remain constant, your space complexity would be O of 1. And for those who are wondering, the reason why we're initializing an array of 26 is because in this particular question it says you can assume that the strings will only contain lowercase capitals, lowercase letters. So so in that case, you'll just need 26 to be the size of the array. So let's get started. The first thing we will do is we will handle the edge cases. So for example, let's say if S is equal to null, or T is equal to null, or S dot length is equal to 0, or the same for T. Dot length is equal to 0, you would just return return false. However, as I'm writing this, I realized if both the strings that are given are empty, technically they are anagrams, so we would do this, and if both of them are equal, and then you would just return true. Right, so these are the two base cases. The other thing that you would also want to consider is s.length. If if s.length is not equal to t.length, that means they're not of the same size. Thereby, there's no way you can rearrange them to form anagrams. You know that they're not anagrams, and you would want to return false, so you would just return false here. Another thing that we could have possibly done is to store these variables s.length and t.length in the beginning of the method, so that we don't have to keep calling it over and over, and it just stored once. Yeah, let's get to the main part of the algorithm. So let's say int the letters is new int of size 26. So for int I less than s.length, yeah. Let me just quickly make space so that it comes back up. Cool. So what are we doing here? Yes, so we would say letters of s.character at I minus a, and the reason why we're doing minus a is because you want to get this particular guide, the thing that I've highlighted, would give you the ASCII value, and then if you subtract the ASCII value of lowercase a from it, your index would start from 0. Thereby, it would go nicely into this particular index array that we have initialized. So you would just increment that, and you would do something similar for t. So you are going over all of the letters in S, and you're incrementing that particular array as the number of characters it has and how many times they've occurred, and then you would subtract that for t. So the only thing that's left is you would go over the entire array and see if everything is 0. So let me just quickly copy paste this, and then int I is equal to 0, I less than 26, I plus plus. So what are we doing here? So if letters of I is not equal to 0, you would just return false. Otherwise, if you reach all the way to the end, you know that all of them are 0, and then you would return true. So before we actually run this to see if everything is okay, let's run to an example. So if we have ABC, and if we initialize an array for the first for loop, which is going over this particular for loop, the array would look something like this. Since it has one, it would increase 1, and then 1, and then 1, and then you would go on and on and on. So for example, this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, and you would continue that all the way up to index 25. And then when you're iterating through a string t, you have b, so you would go to this particular area and then you would subtract it, so that becomes 0. And then you have c, and then you would go to c and you would subtract that to put 0, and then you would go to a, and then you would subtract 1 to get 0. So in this case, since both of these are anagrams, you would have the entire character array to be 0. Yeah. Let's run this code to see if it passes the base test case. Yes, it does. So I submit it to make sure it runs through all of the test cases. Yes, it does. So that is the problem, and that's how you solve it. Let me know if you have any questions below, and I'd be more than happy to answer them.